So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for joining us on this webinar today, looking at how to use social media more effectively, but also how to start driving your fundraising into social media online. This is a direct response to the surveys you all did for us, and one of the areas were those two that came out really high for support needs. So we hope it's great, and we'll be looking forward to working with you on it over the next period of time. Okay. Well, our first speaker today is Layla from Mind and also works with the Heads Up partners. So Layla, can I hand over to you for the first presentation?
Thanks, Dan. My name is Layla Vladar and I'm Marketing and Engagement Manager for Heads Up Harrow, the partnership of specialist mental health services that's led by Mind. So I also work for Mind and Harrow, and I'm going to talk to you today about the importance of strategy and messaging in your social media. So I'll just share my screen with you now. Right, okay, yeah, as I said, the importance of meaningful messaging and strategy. So just quickly about me, I used to work for Oxford University Press, and I was involved at the very beginning of their Facebook page. We started off in October 2017 from scratch, and by the time I left in May this year, we were at 30,000 followers, and I can see now that they're already up to nearly 50,000 followers, so they're doing really, really well. And the reason I mention this is just because I obviously learned a lot doing that. So hopefully I can share some of the things that I learned doing that. There's always more to learn. I have so much more to learn. And because social media is changing every single day, there's always something new to apply. So this isn't the be all and end all. It's important to keep your ear to the ground. So just quickly, as I said, Marketing and Engagement Manager now for Heads Up, and I'm also running the social media for Mind and Harrow at the moment. So we all know that there's an awful lot of noise on social media. Here's just a quick feed as an example of how much stuff is constantly going past your eyes every single day. And how do you decide where to stop? What is it that attracts you? Where would you stop? What is it that you stopped for? What are you gaining when you stop there? These are all things that you need to think about when you start using your social media. And one thing that's also important to think about is branding. So here's just an example. This is National Mind. So this isn't anything to do with me, but they have a very clear look and feel. And it means that if somebody is scrolling and they don't even stop on your post or your story, they've already seen that, and subliminally, they've got that. They know that that was Mind. And maybe the next time they're looking to fundraise or they're looking for some support, they're going to think about you. I know we're all charities. We don't like to think we're selling, but we are selling ourselves. We're selling our message and we're selling our cause. So it doesn't have to be high level. It can just be about a color scheme, maybe the same place you put your logo every time, a particular style of illustrations or photos. That can just give you that unique look and feel that can make you identifiable. So the most important question to ask when you're doing social media is why. That is the key part of everything you're doing. So why are you on social media? Are you there to be an informational resource? Are you providing links and articles? Or are you more of a support? Are you a friend on social media, providing tips and tricks, inspirational quotes? Or are you trying to be some kind of a forum? Do you want audience participation? You need to think about what you're trying to be and what you're trying to do. What are your objectives? So this is where strategy comes in. And I would always set maybe 3 to 6 strategic objectives. And everything you do should match up to one of these, because then you know exactly why you're doing it and how you can align it to this. So just a really quick example might be if you're a carers charity, you might think, okay, my 2 strategic objectives are to raise awareness to the public of the needs and the role of carers. But my second strategic objective is to support carers every day. Someone might come to you with a recipe. They say, oh, post this recipe. And you could say, I'm sorry, that doesn't fit with my objectives, so I'm not going to do it. It's important to know why you're doing things, because there's a lot of noise on social media. You don't want people to turn off. Alternatively, you could say, actually, I can make this recipe fit in with my objective to support carers, and that's how I can frame it. And it gives you a why. It means that people are going to click on that content. Exactly. So what is your audience gaining from a particular post? How can you frame it to make it relevant? Who are your audience? Think about what they would respond to. How do they speak? What kind of language would they use? What's their level of English? Do they respond well to jargon? Do they want credible sources, for example, or do they want plain English? Are they old? Are they young? Do they already know about you? Do they not know about you? These things can inform how you use your messaging, how you use your imaging, and even what times of day you post. Does this differ by platform? Are you talking to people when they're at work? How does this make things different? Facebook, for example, is a much older platform than Instagram. So you might have different messaging on Facebook than you would on Instagram. So it's all things to think about. How does it affect your language? What kind of media does this audience engage with? Do they like Reels, for example? I know that young people are enjoying the TikTok style at the moment, whereas older people, it wouldn't mean a lot to them. Where? So as I said, platforms are changing all the time. So this is not going to be exhaustive. It's going to change every day. But keep an ear to the ground, figure out what is working on different platforms, who is on those platforms, and what you can use. So for example, at the moment for Instagram, saves are going to give you the most reach. So what content can you put out on that platform that people are going to want to save instead of just like? Facebook might be better for sharing your events or sharing your news, or for discussions and forums, or your advertising. And Twitter is more of a high level sharing platform. You don't have as many characters to use, but big organizations might want to share your content. You can get a larger platform for sharing and retweeting and things like that. When? Time of day can make all the difference. A good example is we posted something very similar in the week, and then something very similar on a Sunday. In the week, it absolutely flew. And on a Sunday, we didn't get any traction really at all. So it's a case of just trial and error. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work, because everything moves so fast, that will move so far down in your feed that you can try again. Try it at a different time. See if it works. Keep the things that work and just note down the things that don't. Once you've answered all of those questions, you can think about what. So what are you going to put into your social media? So make sure it's relevant and appropriate. So you've answered that: who, why, where, and when. But you have to think, you might want to keep up to date with all the trends on social media, but it might not be relevant. So a good example is at the moment, we're in the second lockdown, and I've heard 2 different messages saying the same thing, one on Classic FM, one on KISS. The one on Classic FM was very to the point, newsreader style, just giving the information. The one on KISS was all about, you see your mate Christian walking down the street, he goes in for a hug, and you do the duck and roll and real talk, all of this. That wouldn't work on Classic. So even if you want to, use lots of emojis because you see other people doing it, you want to copy influencers, think about your audience. Does that work for them? Do your image and copy need to be accessible? Do you need captions on your videos, for example? How does it fit? So pick a strategic objective and make sure you're doing it for a good reason. And imagine it on your feed. Would you stop? Would you engage with it? Is it obvious what you're going to do next? What's your call to action? So do you want them to click through somewhere? Do you want them to save it? Do you want them to comment? Is it something you'd like them to share? You need to think, what are they going to do? Why are you telling them what you're telling them? So just a few key things to remember. Identify your objectives. I'll say it again and again, but that's the most important thing. Identify your why. Prioritize quality over quantity. You don't want people to switch you off. You are much better placed prioritizing good quality content twice a week than posting stuff that's not relevant every single day, because people will mute you. And I know that people are very busy. Staff capacity is not, there's not a lot of it. So just try and set aside a little bit of time and make good quality posts rather than trying to get things out on a hamster wheel. Be responsive. So make sure you've identified who's going to be responsible for replying to things, who's going to be responsible for comments. If you get any negative responses, you need to be ready with a response to that. And you need to decide on your response times. Will you get back to people within 24 hours, 48 hours, but be consistent and make sure you're going back to people. See yourself as a salesperson. Like I said, we are selling our cause and we're selling our organizations. So mirroring is key. Mirror your audience, because that's how they're going to respond. People by people. So if you've got any real content, use it. If you've got videos, if you've got images of people doing something real, use it. And don't be afraid to experiment. Trial and error is the way forward. As I say, it's so fast paced that if something doesn't work, no one's going to remember. Just try it, and then you can try something new. Use your personality. Like I said, people by people. So if there's a personality behind an account, you're going to do much, much better. And that's it. So thank you, Dan. I'll pass back to you.
Well, thank you so much, Layla. I think that was inspiring. It was challenging. It really made me start thinking again about, are we getting the basics right? Because if we get the basics right, we can really develop the impact and how we use social media to not only drive the audience so that we can get our message about us out, but also look for opportunities to develop a fundraising kind of piece of work around it. Well, there's probably not in Harrow a better organization that has really been able to do that, really taking from a low kind of number of people on social media to a really quite a large number, and then really activating them to be champions for them, to help them do the fundraising in amazing ways that they are doing. So Lynn, I'd love to hand over to you to tell us all about the Centre for ADHD and Autism.
Thanks, Dan. Let me just share my screen with you all. So just to introduce myself briefly, I'm the Director of Autism Services at Centre for ADHD and Autism Support. And we are a local charity based in Hillingdon, but support over 50% of our clients from Harrow. We support, educate and empower ADHD and autistic individuals, their families and the wider community. And we do that through a range of 37 different services. We primarily offer the service to residents in the borough of Harrow and Hillingdon. And over the last year, we've supported over 2,300 people at our centre or in the community. And part of that has been funded by the money we've raised through the work that we do on social media. It's been really interesting listening to Layla, because I think inadvertently we've done some of the things we should have done without even really knowing that we needed to. So CAS are by no means social media experts. And today my aim is to show you that you don't have to have huge resources or even really know what you're doing. You just need to be really willing to put the effort in. So around 3 years ago, CAS decided that we needed to increase our online presence. We knew that it was going to be important and it was going to be the way forward. So initially we focused on Facebook and Twitter, as you can see by our numbers, but we've since added Instagram and LinkedIn. We do have Pinterest and we do have Snapchat, but they're not something that we use that regularly. We recently updated our website, but again, we don't necessarily have the time to update it as often as we would like, but the key messages are on there. One of the things we hadn't done was paid too much information to our Google account until recently, but we noticed that actually we could see that 1,800 people had viewed our landing page in the last 28 days, and also that 72 people had contacted us by clicking through the phone number on the Google site. So you can actually get some really, really good information from Google. So as Layla mentioned, you need to think about why you want to do these things. So we had to think about what we wanted from social media. We thought about our audience. We knew initially that our target audience was going to be our local area, although interestingly, we've got a national and international following now. We knew we were targeting parents and carers because that was primarily our primary client group at the time. But as I said, as our services have developed and we've started working with young people and adults, we have changed our social media to match that. So you do need to consider your audience and your platforms, as Layla said. So we started with Facebook because if you are more middle-aged, and I put myself in that bracket, then that's probably what you're looking at. We also had to think about who would do our social media. We are still quite a small organisation. We do have 18 staff, which doesn't sound small, but there's only 2 full-time staff and everybody else is part-time, a range of 3 to 24 hours a week. So what we decided to do was to divide and conquer. So I run our Facebook, Therese, my co-director, runs our Twitter, and Helen, our Autistic Adult Services lead, runs our Instagram. And I think we're almost playing catch up because after the fact, we decided that we needed to have proper policies and things in place. So we've been really clear about the expectations of the language that we want used on CAS's behalf in social media. So for example, I know that if I use with autism, rather than autistic on Twitter, or if I post anything that mentions or highlights ABA, applied behavioural analysis, then we're likely to face a lot of backlash on our social media from the autistic Twitter population or Facebook population. So it's knowing those kinds of things. We don't have a formalised strategy yet. We know that we need one, and we're in the process of doing it. And we've also recently signed up with Canva, which is a fairly affordable or even free platform that allows you to create really good looking graphics. So what are the positives? For us, fundraising. We, as Dan alluded to, have raised an incredible amount of money from Facebook fundraisers. We signed up in 2017. I'm not going to talk figures today, but as a funding source, I will say that we get more from Facebook than any other single funder. The downside of that being, of course, is that it's variable, so you can't necessarily rely on it as a funding source. And then with the support of the Young Foundation, we've also taken part in crowdfunding and Big Give, and all of those have got very different things involved in them. I think social media can affect your reputation. We've got a good reputation locally, but now on a wider basis, and we get regular contact from people all over the UK. It's also supported our networking with other organisations, so things like the ADHD Foundation in Liverpool or the FIS, who invited us to speak at one of their fundraising conferences, also allowed us to connect with national and international speakers relevant to our client group, who've then come and run workshops for us. It also raises awareness of your cause and allows you to give those you support a voice. So things to think about: the time commitment. It does take time, so you need to be willing to put the effort in and to continue to put the effort in. So we will have phases where we post a few times a day, and other times like now where life is incredibly hectic, we post a few times a week. For us, it's not always new content or stuff that we've created, but what we'll do is we'll share content from other people that we know that our clients and our followers will appreciate. You need to thank your donors. So with Facebook, we thank everybody, whether they've raised £5 or whether they've raised 500 or 5,000. And that takes quite a lot of time. There is, we use Give Panel, which allows us to do that slightly more easily and to track what they do, because Facebook reporting is unfortunately not great. You need to manage occasional refunds and occasionally difficult people. We did a workshop recently, and we had somebody spamming every single post on our Facebook claiming to be live streaming our workshop. So we had to manage that and post quite clearly, don't click on the links, we don't know what their links are. And then on another occasion, we had somebody who claimed to be doing a fundraiser for us. So they raised a small amount online. I think we saw £9 of it, and they raised about £500 that we never saw. So again, thankfully, we are registered with a fundraising regulator who could advise us on that. And then just kind of top tips: divide and conquer. If you don't have funding to have a social media person in, then divide and conquer within your organisation. Get different people to manage different things. You can use something like Hootsuite, which will post on all of the different platforms. You can schedule your posts, so it might be on a Sunday you do everything for the week ahead. I think keep your page active and relevant. And again, as Layla said, interactive or personal content will always get responses. But in terms of being responsive, our Facebook response time to messages at the minute is 17 hours. So we respond to everybody within 24 hours, regardless of the message. Remember to use your hashtags. I forget that you can use hashtags now on Twitter, but they use them really well on Instagram, and I forget on Facebook. They use them well on Instagram and Twitter. I think you can do paid advertising. We haven't done that yet. Our growth has all been organic. But I think if you do spend wisely, you don't necessarily need to. And the last thing to finish with, be responsive, engage with your followers, and thank your donors. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm sure that's going to bring some questions. So again, just to remind everyone, if they could put your questions down in their Q&As, we'll be able to get to them at the end of the full presentation. So thank you, Lynn, again. Okay, I'd like to introduce you to Rowena from the Wish Centre. So as she turns her camera on and turns her mic on, the Wish have been amazingly successful in loads of different ways of fundraising, but one of the ways is how you turn those early discussions and the early networks into, which often takes a lot of time, I'm sure Rowena's going to tell you about it, into large donations, and what does it take to start from trying to be open to all the way through to that journey. So Rowena, over to you, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, morning everyone. I'll just share my screen. Do you want to go from the beginning? You'll have to be my key presser. Right, okay, so this is really how we build on all the wonderful work that's been done around developing your networks and your comms into actually acquiring potential donors. So if you don't mind, Dan, next slide. So one of the key things really is that you are more likely to actually translate your contacts into donors when you can get a face-to-face meeting. So obviously now we're talking about Zoom. So I just wanted to kind of share some steps with you around how you can go about doing that. One of the issues, as we know, is a lot of potential donors just are not interested. You know, they're busy, they don't want to give. But however, as someone's alluded to earlier, it's actually about your relationship. So if you can get to meet with people, you're more likely to get a donation at the end of it. So I think the key point there is at the bottom. If there really is a good reason why you think a person or a company or a corporation or foundation should be interested in you as a charity in your cause, then you have to connect. So if you can just click again down, please, it comes up on the left. So just to recap, I mean, we have to keep looking for new donors. It's really important because sometimes donors drop off, it's a natural thing. And actually, as I said, getting that first conversation or meeting in, which is often called the cold call in fundraising, is critical. So I'm going to give you a few tips around that, because if you can get your meeting in, you're more likely to get the cash. Okay, next slide, please. So what's stopping us? There are so many reasons, you know. Do we feel embarrassed? Do we feel we're imposing? Are people not going to be interested? They can't give? Well, if we don't try, we don't know. But as we know, like, there is a lot of money out there potentially to give to somebody. So I would just invite you to think, as we're going through the presentation, try and identify, like, what is one person or company or foundation that you think you should be approaching, and just think about why you're not. So next slide, please. So here's some tips. Obviously prepare. So if you want to stop there for a second, Dan, part of the preparation is, you know, it's noisy out there. There's a lot of good causes. What is different about your charity? Okay, so for example, Wish, we work with young people that self-harm. Okay, there are others doing that. What's different about Wish is that 50% of our board are ex-service users, and we have peer support groups. So, and we're local, and we've had an evaluation. So you've got to sort of put your case together. So I mentioned cold call, but obviously, you know, nobody likes getting the calls on the telephone from sellers. So how do we warm up a cold call? So let's keep going down, please. We'll just carry on from there, Dan, because I've mentioned that. This is just if people want to do some work after. So how you prepare is this. So get your potential donor list together. So can you click again, please? So the way we do that is you have to put the work in. Write down a list by geography. So who's around in Harrow potentially that could donate to you? Is that individual people on your own network, your trustees' networks, for example? Is there local companies? Are there local trusts and foundations? Write them down. Segment that by what's the relationship to you, to other people in your charity. Also importantly, who's donated to you in the past? You know, could we go to them again? put them down on a separate list. And then you've got your wish list of future donors. And then also, you know, people who've maybe benefited from your services or have experiences of the issues. You have to do this preparation so you can match it to the person that you're going to approach. So let's keep going down. Now, again, another list by purpose. What's the purpose of your approach to the donor? Is this because you've got a really good campaign? Or is there a particular program you think they might be interested in? During the pandemic, you know, lots of people are looking for emergency funding. Why should a donor donate to you? You know, so you have to personalize your approach. Let's keep going. And then I think this is really important, by amounts. So I think the way we approach it at Wish is we look at kind of what's the sort of trickle of ongoing sustainable donations that we can rely on. So that's using local products like Harrow Wins and crowdfunding, and Lynn mentioned Facebook donations. But also for me, I think it's looking at how much do I think people can give. So I want to talk very quickly about high net worth individuals. So as we know, in Harrow, we've got one of the highest percentage of millionaires in the borough. They need to give somewhere. Look at that list. Are there any connections with you in any of the previous lists? I can tell you now, a high net worth individual, an example at Wish, somebody I approached several years ago. It took me 2 years from the cold call to receiving the funds, and that's average for a high net worth individual. But what did I get? Well, directly from this person's own money, £80,000, so a substantial donation, but then through his networks and connections, an additional £200,000. And this is what I want to just bring your attention to, what I call the kind of super donors, super spreaders. So another example for me, more recently during the pandemic, I made an approach to somebody who was on one of my lists who had raised small amounts of funds for us before. So basically, I made the call and made the ask, and I'm going to take you through a few steps in a minute. And as a result, this person set up an ongoing fundraising event during the pandemic. He raised about £5,000 for us through that. And since then, there's been a trickle effect. So he's gone on and created other events, but some of the people that donated to his event have now gone on to fundraise for us individually. So super donors, okay? Let's carry on down. Right, now, this is really important. Couple of things. So you've identified who you're going to approach. Think about when you're going to do it. Now, big tip is if you're going for someone really, really busy, or say high net worth individual or CEO of a company or corporation, lunchtime is actually quite a good time to call because they're more likely to answer the phone themselves rather than going through their PA or somebody else. So just some little tips. Let's keep going. We've talked a little bit about researching the potential donor. What are their interests? You know, I think usually if you can talk to someone for long enough, but again, we're pre-talking phase, you can usually find a connection. That's what I did with our high net worth individual. They'd never heard of self-harm, but through our conversations, they found out that actually a lot of their daughter's friends were self-harming and the window was open. Let's keep going. Yeah, obviously, you're going to be thinking about what questions they're going to ask you. So you've got to put a bit of a script together and you have to practice it. And this is where you need to engage people in your organization to practice your script. So first thing you do is send the email. Might not be best coming from you. Maybe it's going to be someone on your board or someone senior or someone who's actually got the link with them as an introduction. Now in that email, basically, please don't send a long email. You just want to send something really brief asking for a time for a call, okay, or a meeting. Let's keep going. So I've mentioned that 4 lines if possible. This is who we are. This is what we do. Would it be possible to arrange a call or a meeting with you? And this is the reason why. Okay. Keep being focused. Let's keep going down. So you want to get the appointment or the meeting booked in with you. So you're going to have your list now, which you've segmented. What I like to do is start with the easiest ones first, that I think like I've got more chance of success with, because then it just helps me kind of feel a bit more confident. Let's keep going. Okay, so really simple tips here, not teaching you to suck eggs, but obviously if you're on the phone, stand up, because you sound like fresher and more engaged. Now, you're not ringing up somebody to sort of become their friend or ask them loads of questions. You know, ultimately you are looking to engage a donor, but you know, be brief. Don't let them feel you're going to be someone who's going to waste their time or take up a lot of time. Let's keep going. So, yep, I'm just following up on the email I sent you. Would it be possible to make a time to meet with you on Zoom or face-to-face to talk about the campaign we're running or to talk about the work that we do at YHF? I think there could be some potential areas of interest. Keep going. So here's a few examples you can read about what your purpose of your call may be. Now, this is really important. I personally, most of the time, do not want the first call to be about what I call the ask. Because if you're just ringing up someone to try and make the ask for a donation on that first call, you may be successful, but I tell you what, you're not going to get as much as if you cultivate the relationship through. So I prefer to say to someone, look, I'm not actually arranging this call or meeting to ask you for a donation. I may want to talk to you about that in the future, but actually what I'd like to do is to talk to you about X, the campaign or the issue. And just be really clear with people, you know, I'm going to need 15 minutes of your time. Would it be possible to have 20 minutes of your time? What works best for you? You've got to be flexible. You know, you're trying to engage with someone. So do they want to speak to you at 8 o'clock in the evening? That's what you're going to do. And then obviously get your calendar ready, because we're going to be hopefully very successful with lots of meetings booked in. Let's keep going. Okay. So what are the kind of things people say to you? Well, no, you know, either, well, just tell me now. Well, okay, I understand that, but I think it's actually better if I could have some time with you on Zoom or face-to-face, because I don't want to take up your time now. I know you're very busy. I've no time to meet. Yes, I understand that. But if I send you information, you know, it's going to feel like maybe I haven't explained it properly. So try and avoid these responses. There's a bit more of a training course around this, but, you know, that's what you want to do. You want to get your meeting in. And I've already talked about never ask for big donations on the phone. Keep going. So this is what I call the rule of 7. It's quite well known in fundraising. You should really try around 7 times before, well, you never give up on a potential donor, but you put them on your sort of backlist 7 times. So that could be, okay, you've tried to arrange a meeting, you've tried to arrange a call, you've sent them some materials, then maybe you'll just do things like tag them in something on social media, or send them a little email saying, oh, I've seen something I thought might interest you. It's not 7 times of asking them, but it takes around 6 to 7 times sometimes on for new donors to actually come through. Keep going. So yeah, obviously you're going to be super, super professional with people. That's fantastic. Send your email straight away. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to seeing you next Monday at 10 o'clock. And making sure you've got their contact details. Keep going down. And then just see, how do they like being contacted? What works best for you? Some people like to be text, some people want email. Don't assume, don't fall into sort of a habit of doing what suits you as an organisation. I'm going to email you loads of things if that doesn't work for them. And that's what I've just said at the end, really, there. I mean, when you have your meeting, obviously you've prepared and you've got lots of information with you, but you never go into a meeting with all of that stuff. You know, you really just want to talk and have it at your fingertips, because then that's your next link afterwards. Okay, as agreed, here's some information I'm going to drop off to you or email to you. Okay, so you've got to focus on the story, you've got to listen to them and try and find your kind of mutual bridge, really. Let's keep going. So, of course, there are never too many thank yous, but I just want to give you an example of good and bad practice around that. So standard things, hopefully we're all doing, you know, where you're sending either letters or emails, thank you packs. You need to give people shout outs on your social media, as Lynn mentioned. There's a range of kind of positive thank yous. I can tell you once where we got it completely wrong at Wish, and this is about also the message of checking your socials, where somebody had set up a fundraiser for us, quite a big event going over some period of time in another London borough that we were working in at the time. And for some reason, we weren't aware of it until halfway through their campaign. And I think they were so peed off with us that really we couldn't get that ground back. And we didn't really, I think, go in and give them enough credit. So you need to get involved with people's campaigns. That's part of the thank yous. So the feedback loop, again, is very important. So the example I gave you of the recent pandemic fundraiser, what we did is we got involved with that person's events. You know, we went on the radio show, we posted things on their social media for their donors to look at. And then, of course, what we did once the event finished, we actually shared our outcomes. So what was the impact of that donation? That person then shared it with their followers, and, you know, they felt good, their donors felt good, we felt good at Wish. And as I said before, then as a result, we got more donations through. So there's so much more I could talk to you about this issue, but I'm out of time, but happy to take questions.
Thank you, Rowena. And we will come back to questions in a minute. I'm going to do a basics talk and then we're going to come back to questions. So again, last reminder, please get your Q&As in there. So if you've got questions to Layla about how to tighten up those messages, how to understand how you can be clearer, how you can be more effective in what you're saying, then get those questions in there. If you've got questions around how do you as an organization really start to plan how you're going to build a significant kind of fundraising tool using, or just a communications tool using social media, then Lynn's there. And obviously, if you then want to really turn some of those contacts into large donors, let's get some questions in there for Rowena. So it's now my turn to give you the basics, and it really is the basics, mainly because I know that I'm just closing Rowena's presentation, just so I can get to mine 1 second. So I wanted to just share for us at Young Hannah Foundation, what would we advise to be the absolute basics? And just to put this into context, so we have now been going for 6 years, but I'd really say over the last 4 years, we've been focusing is starting to build kind of some traction on social media. And it's only since January, taking on Suri, who's on the call as well, starting to look at kind of how to actually engage kind of more frequent donors and how to help them give to local charities. So I just want to give you a really quick whistle-top tour of what I think we've learned as some of the real basics. So first of all, this is worth thinking about, is why you're doing it. So for me, there are 3 plans that every organization should have. You've got your organization strategic plan, your operations plan. Sometimes that's the same thing, but you need to know what direction in vision-wise are you going and what are you trying to do? What is the impact? Underneath them, if you're fully voluntary, you don't need a fundraising plan, obviously. If you aren't fully voluntary, you do need some kind of a fundraising plan, setting out how are you trying to achieve that, what are the ways you're going to raise money to do that, and where are your best opportunities to do that. Now, if going through that fundraising plan, donors, donations, events, major donors, corporates is coming up as something you really think you have potential for, then I would suggest you should be starting to look at a strategic communications and marketing Over the last couple of years, the organizations that I think have used this the most, as in the way they work and the way they think, is when at least one of these three areas are key to them really focusing time. Either they need to grow their reputation in a local presence, they need to engage more with the local community, or they really are focusing on how to develop corporate or donors. And when at least one of these are a key focus or a key importance for you as an organization, I think what you'll find is you will spend more time achieving more success on social media. So again, really, let's start there. Do you need to use social media? Because it is going to use a lot of time. It is going to develop quite a lot of human resources to really build it. Now, it has great potential. And I think, especially as we've seen over COVID, those that have it have the still ability to engage and to reach out to either the people that need their support or people that might need to give. Okay, and before I look at those basics, just some basics for those that are possibly new at all to kind of fundraising. Some of the smaller charities I know that on the call might need this. This is something CAF did quite a few years ago, so some of it might be slightly out of date. But what they were looking at is for £1 it takes to do something, what could be the investment back? So as you can see, trusts and foundations, for every £1 you put in, you're looking at about £7 back. So for £10,000, you should be trying to raise at least £70,000 for your organisation. That includes your time or you're investing in someone to help you with that work. Legacies is a little bit of a false lead, I would say. So unless you are really deciding to significantly invest into legacies, then be very careful of legacy, because you have to put some significant amount of time. Now, there is great payoff, but it probably won't come in for about 10 years. But there is great payoff if you do decide to invest in that. Now, what we're really looking at today, so if trust and foundations is the only thing you use, then social media isn't really going to help you. Maybe a little bit with reputation, but trusts and foundations won't be making any decisions based on your social media content. The next four, though, have a real benefit. If you are thinking corporate, committed giving, or just one-off events, donors, or events as in like a gala or something like that, if you're thinking those are important, then social media plays a massive importance at the moment, making those kind of figures possible. That when you invest £1 worth of time or resource, you might be seeing those kind of investments back. Like Rowena said, just to be aware of, the corporate and the major donors, you're normally talking 1, 2, or 3 years before you start to see the investment back. They have great investment back, but it does take slightly longer. The other thing I wanted to say before I look at the basics, I can't now, go to my next slide, is this, and this is just to encourage people. So if you are only looking at, let's say, events or just like a donations thing, like a crowdfund or something like that, you can totally do it through mass market, through something like social media. If you are looking for mid-corporates, major donors, or even like larger-ish giving, then there has to be a personal touch. And like Rowena just touched on, face-to-face is what normally makes a significant difference. If you can't just use mass market for those kind of pieces of work. Well, that puts a foundation. So again, if you're from all the three talks and what I've just said, you're still thinking, yeah, we've really got to get into social media, then this are some of my basics of what I think are really important. The 3 areas I think you need to get right is your platform, your audience, and your message. Layla touched on this quite a lot, so I'm not going to go on everything, but just so you see what I think is really important. So the first one is which one? So Young Howard Foundation, we have 3 streams. So we aim for community and potential donor engagement. We use Facebook and Instagram. They really have only started in January of this year, because we were doing a big gala, and then since then through COVID, we've been working on content in that area through Suri, our donor care manager. We have started using them, so we've been building those up since January. Twitter, which was started on the first day of Young Howard Foundation, has always been and will always be our member in our stakeholder engagement. And our LinkedIn, which is officially my LinkedIn, but it's for the organization that we use it, is our corporate engagement. Now, why it's been really important to keep those things clear is if we try to do fundraising on Twitter, we wouldn't get anywhere. One, because our network that we have on there wouldn't want to give, but two, the people that use Twitter are not normally the ones that will make connections to your donations or wanting to give. So we saw a lot over COVID, we were putting a lot out. When we saw things on Instagram, we saw little spikes in giving. We sometimes saw a little bit on LinkedIn, and we saw nothing connected to Twitter feeds that we did. So it's making sure, first of all, the importance of your platform. So just an example, so this was last year, well actually in 2017, Christmas 2017, we put a call out. We were working with a load of charities to help them do a crowdfunder, and we needed some local businesses to give some donations so they could be match funding the charities doing their fundraising. LG Accountants kindly gave just £200 to support that event. They were really pleased with that. We did a couple of photo shoots, and they like just on Instagram and LinkedIn, I think it was. Or not Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn, they were really pleased with it. About 4 months later, we were working with Harrow School on a fundraising event, and we thought actually it would be a great link because the Harrow School has a little bit more kudos in Harrow. By linking this company that is interested in getting a bit more involved to this event, and what we did is we asked them for £2,000 to help fund the charity event that's going to be being given to local charities. But part of that will be, we will put some stuff on LinkedIn, and we'll connect with you, and we'll come and meet with you about it. They were really happy to do it. They were really pleased with it. This was one of the LinkedIn posts that got thousands of hits. And they got some really interesting communications from it, which was fantastic. They were pleased. Again, the reason I say that is because of the face-to-face, the meetings that went through, and there was quite a lot of meetings that happened with this. We then, in February this year, did the gala underneath their name. They paid for the gala, and we raised £80,000 on one evening, where they paid quite a lot of the upfront cost. Again, it's that balance of, on LinkedIn, they connected with us. We were putting stuff out saying, would you donate? They gave £200. But we had a big enough network that attracted someone to say, actually, yeah, we'd give £200. We then did that face-to-face that Rowena was talking, and turned that into an opportunity for them to give a little bit more, them to feel the benefit of being connected to us. And then we went in with a big ask that was nearly 2 years later, but it raised a significant amount of money, hopefully for you as members, that we gave away over COVID, or we're just about to give away for some other reasons. Another example of LinkedIn being used well. So Malcolm, our chair, has just left. On his last day, I put this post on LinkedIn to talk about thank you so much for being involved and what Malcolm's going on to do. 6,700 people engaged with that post. 172 reacted, and there were 20 comments. A lot were saying, Malcolm, can I have a conversation? Malcolm, can we engage with your equality and diversity piece of work? So again, are you using your social media to see what you wouldn't normally be able to do, like engage with audiences and organizations in different ways? Instagram, I had a little look-see back. Again, we've only been using it since January. I looked at what is the largest post. So every week, we put one post out about a member, and we put one post out normally about either fundraising or an opportunity to engage. This one got the largest hits as a post. It's 128 likes, and it was about giving over COVID. And which is great. It's telling us the audience we're trying to reach, which is donors, are the kind of people that are reading this because they're the ones liking it. So again, how do you track? How do you understand that the audience that you're trying to work with, are they the ones that are reading it? Can you tell by who's liking it, by who's commenting on it? What kind of comments? Are you getting the tone right, the communications right, the photo right? Twitter, for those that haven't seen, we've been doing a little bit of campaigning on Twitter, getting young people to be part of the wear your mask, because we had a bit of an issue in Harrow, young people not wearing masks. I wanted to show this so on Twitter, we would never really push a fundraising, but this was interesting. We pushed the campaign. Since this, I've had communications from the GLA, the Greater London authorities, from some of the large national kind of organizations. Can they partner with us? Could they use some of our content? Now, I've got to decide whether it's a benefit for us, but what it shows is by trying to really build who your network could be, but if you get the right content out in the right social media, actually you start to see the impact. And so for us, this is about reputation and about being seen in certain areas so we can get through doors and help our members more effectively. A little exercise, I don't know, we can ask Layla in a minute what she feels about it, but I know an exercise some charities use. We did it, we haven't used it as much as we would like, but it is a good exercise, is this, which is a persona. Why not develop a persona on a person that you're trying to communicate. So it helps you really target your communications, being really specific, kind of picturing someone on who you're making those messages for. It just helps you a little bit. So that's the platform. So now the audience. I love this quote: satisfied customers are not enough. You need raving fans. One of the things I would definitely suggest and really encourage is, yes, you have to build your network, but your network is only as good as if you can use it for them to use their network. And I'll explain by this. So how do you turn your network from this into this? So an example of this. So weeks ago, we put this post out on World Mental Health Day. We started to see a bit of a decrease on the Help Harrow kind of platform, giving food out. So we thought, let's put something out on World Food Day. It makes sense. As you can see here, the numbers were really low, really, really low. About 9 days later, we did it again. We spent a bit more time thinking about which people with big networks have been talking about food hunger. So Gareth Thomas, and there were 8 others. The difference was significant. Look at the difference. 10 times the amount of people that engaged with the actual post, and 7 times the amount of times it went past people. And the only difference between those 2 posts was actually making sure that we empowered our network to be part of the communicators, linking them into your posts, connecting people in, making sure that you're especially with fundraising, really you've got to, I think the best online fundraising that I see is when people work hard at the beginning, getting a network of people that will communicate for you, that will pull their audience, their network together to fundraise, rather than you spend all your time asking your immediate network to give money. All the evidence from us shows that it works so much better. So that's your audience. And the last one is your message. And we've heard loads about this today, so I'm really not going to say much except for these really quick ones. So first of all, what draws you into the post? The imagery, the video, the impact. I think Layla again said in hers, what draws you in? So for me at the moment, videos. I've started to use Facebook again. And the main reason for that is because there's just so much more video content. So I really enjoy it. So for me, you've probably seen from our kind of social media streams, we're trying to put small videos out more because it works for us. It's how I'm engaged. It's my age, and my age is about the age that we're aiming for people to give and to connect with what we're doing. The ease of understanding what you're saying, try not to make it complicated. Sometimes you see some posts and it just baffles you of what is actually being trying to say. Ours as well. Again, Layla touched on this. What are you actually trying to get out of the message? It's a really big important. Are you trying to just build your kind of network? Are you trying to connect with people on an emotional level? Are you trying to get them to give? Is it really clear? And have you really thought through the message and what you're trying to get? And the last one is, how do you make it easy for them to engage with the takeaway message? So if they want to donate, how easy is it for them to donate? Have you made it the easiest possible way for them to click a button really clearly and donate? Or is it quite hard? Have you tested it? Have you tried it? Is there any way you can improve the easiness of doing that? And it's the same with the other stuff. So if you want people to engage in a post, have you made it easier for them to engage in that post? So again, like I said before, I was just showing the basics, just wanting to make sure, oh, my computer's gone black. Hold on a second. Just looking at some of those basics and making sure that we can cover them together. So again, please put your questions in. I'm going to probably throw some more in. So can we have Rowena and Lynn? I think we might have lost Layla, unfortunately. I know she had another meeting at 11. So any questions for her, we'll try and get them out maybe over email. So Rowena, if you come back. Glenys, if you could come in as well on now. And again, in about 10 to 15 minutes, about 10 minutes, we will be going on to just touch base on the Christmas giveaway. So Glenys, over to you to maybe ask any of the questions that people have asked.
Well, hi everyone, really nice to see you and glad you've all come on board today. I think the presentations were so clear and full of absolute, really step-by-step information that there hasn't been a huge amount of questions. I'm going to take that as a good thing because you're all completely taking it in and I've got stuff to follow. But I think one of the big things that's come out is resources and time. So, I mean, it's all very well sort of saying about keeping up on these, different mediums. So I think, Lynn, it kind of came up under yours, or either really. I mean, could you sort of approximately say what sort of people time this kind of takes?
I think in terms of posting, if we were to sit and schedule posting a weekend, for example, it would probably take a couple of hours. On a daily basis, you're probably only looking at 15 to 20 minutes now, but we're established now. So quite often we'll just be on our own social media and we'll see something and we'll post it to our page. I think back in the beginning, you are looking at, I would say probably 2 to 3 hours a week until you kind of get your feet with it. And if you get involved in Facebook fundraisers like we did, you're probably looking at anywhere between 1 to 3 hours a week doing the thank yous. If you thank everybody like we did, and one of the benefits of thanking everybody is we've had people come back and do repeat fundraisers. But just looking, last month, November, we had 120 separate fundraisers that we've got to thank. Now, Give Panel has streamlined that massively, but you are probably still looking at a couple of hours a week doing that.
Rowena, do you want to add anything to that?
I would say probably realistically more like between 5 and 10 hours a week for Wish, because across the different platforms and, you know, trying to, I mean, when I was doing most of it myself, it just wasn't working because I was doing it in the evening and people weren't seeing it, and I was just kind of not creating content and things like that. So whilst other people are doing it in the organisation, they do like to spend some time looking at kind of, you know, not just always about wish, 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 which is what I used to do. You know, actually trying to engage in other people's campaigns and so that research. So you do have to commit the time. So yeah, I would say 5 to 10 hours, and that's not to put people off, because that can be shared out across volunteers, staff members. Yeah.
I think to follow on from that, someone's asked, do you think it would be wise to maybe concentrate on building up one platform first before maybe going across the different mediums?
Yeah, I think, sorry, Rowena, on you go.
You started, go on, carry on.
Yeah, I think probably, I know that we did. I think it's picking which audience you want to hit first and the message that you want to get to that audience, starting there and then moving on to wider audiences.
So I was going to say, actually, it depends on, I think you should try and keep a presence on all platforms, because you don't know where potential donors or networks are going to be active themselves. But it comes back to the purpose of the communication. So, for example, at Wish, if we're looking to sort of secure donations or new donors, we'll put the time in on Facebook or on Twitter to lead people to where we want them to be.
Glenys, can I say as well, one of the things, he's not everyone's taste, but there's a guy called Gary Vee that's on like LinkedIn and some other places, and I remember him saying ages ago to one of the questions, the same question was, should we go with small and should we make sure it's quality, or should we be looking at quantity on a number of things? And he said you should always go quantity, because what you do is you start to learn by what you say. So if you put something out, you know it's not great, putting out on 4 different things, what you do is you start, oh, just a minute, that actually ticked a box on Facebook. Okay, well, let's start building that kind of messaging on Facebook. It doesn't look like it's worked at all on Twitter and Instagram. We didn't know that wasn't going to work. Okay, well, let's not do that again. Let's start building something else. So actually, that quantity on more, it takes more time, but what you do is, as long as you're learning from it and trying to build on it, you actually really go a lot further than if you spend loads of time trying to plan it and predict what you think your messaging is going to do. Is near impossible, because you just have no idea what is going to work for either that day or that period of time.
On the complete flip side of that question, someone has said that really a lot of their families and service users don't use social media. How on earth can they reach out to people? Rowena.
So I think that's what I was trying to get to with my presentation, is that it doesn't, you know, although we use social media a lot, there's actually the old-fashioned things like telephones and emails, and that's a good way to start engaging people who aren't on social media.
I guess there is the, when they say their family and friends aren't, I guess it goes back to what are you trying to get out of social media? Because if it is that you're trying to engage your audience and your direct thing and they're not on social media, then don't use social media. If it's that you as an organization feel you have to start developing donor base, and well, they're probably not your family and friends in most cases, that the people that are in the charity sector, that's not your family and friends. So you have to start building from scratch that network, and that isn't for your family and friends or even your immediate network. That is someone that you have no contact yet with, but you just have to start one day by adding one, by making a comment, and then by just building the bricks to make a bigger network. So again, it goes, one of my things is make sure you know why you're doing it. If you're just trying to just add people and include everyone you know into each social media stream, the chances are your messaging is a little bit confused and people won't know what you're trying to get out of it. So I think that's where I don't think it's just about, because again, my days when I was at Ignite, we were really bad back then at doing social. We didn't put anything, but mainly because our audience didn't need to go through social media streams because of who we were working with. And we didn't really see an importance for us in corporate and larger donations. So we just decided not to, for time-wise, we focused on other areas, not on social media. I think times changed since then, but I think you've got to decide whether you need this. And if you do need it, why are you using it? How are you building it?
Lynn?
Yeah, just to add that within CAS, we get very little response on social media from our actual client group. It's more from the wider community. And I think the same is probably true with fundraisers and all of those things. I mean, 30% of our Facebook fundraisers actually come from overseas. I need to put a caveat in that I think CAS got lucky with our name on Facebook, because we're on Facebook as ADHD and autism support. So people see either and decide I'm going to donate for this charity, but we don't get a lot of engagement from our actual client base.
While you're on, Lynn, it was partly through your presentation and Layla's, 2 questions about Facebook really. What would you kind of say was the generic age profile of users today on Facebook? And the other one is that an organisation are working with a range of people from 8 to 80, and it's a very wide demographic. Do you think you would split that, or are you just always posting for a generic audience?
So in terms of Facebook age profile, I've popped a link on the chart there, which it's a US link, but it looks at the demographics of users on Facebook, Twitter, various different social media platforms. I think between kind of 18 and 49, you're looking at about 79% of people using Facebook. In the younger audience, it says 50% on there, but I know from having teenage kids that they won't use Facebook because it's for old people. They just don't, and none of their friends do. So they might have a Facebook page that they created once upon a time, but they never use it. So they're much more likely, if you're looking at a younger demographic, to engage with Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, those kinds of things.
I had a quick look on when I saw the question, I looked on Google to see what it was, and they said in America it's a 40-year-old is the absolutely middle point for using Facebook. So 40-year-olds is the key age demographics on Facebook, and only 10% of everyone using on a regular basis is either under 17 or over 65. So again, if your audience of those two things, Facebook isn't your thing.
Not your platform.
Your audience is that middle bracket around 40, then great, Facebook is probably a key tool for you. But it's worth just looking into that and trying to get your head around it.
And can I add to that as well? So that's why I think Facebook is really a good platform, particularly to get new donors in. But also with Instagram, you know, okay, we know it's a younger demographic, but I know at Wish, although our IG is very focused for, well, a range actually stakeholders increasingly, but when you look at the sort of back end data, you know, which is good because it shows you who's looking at posts and at what time and what age they are and where they are and stuff like that. But it's actually interesting that there's quite a high proportion of sort of 25 to 35, 40-year-olds who are also potential donors, all into that bracket. So, you know, don't sort of just think Instagram's just the sort of, you know, campaigny stuff. It's also a donation platform if you use it well.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think we're going to have to move on just because of time, because we've slightly gone over. There are a few more questions, and there are things about people asking, you know, is there any help for them? And we've got a couple of things coming up where we will be able to offer some support, maybe some volunteer time and maybe some mentoring. So we will be putting something out. So thank you so much.
Yeah, so please, everyone, please keep an eye on those things. So if you guys want to turn your cameras off as I do this, just quick last presentation, and then if we've got time for a couple more questions, we will pull you back in again. But please keep an eye on those. They'll be coming from Glenys. There will be some opportunities to engage some consultancy support, maybe work with another member to get some mentoring support, and to also give you a small grant if you're willing to develop your platform on our website to make sure it's communicating really effectively. One of the organisers that already had one of these grants is Wish, who's on this call. So if you want to go on and see how they're using now reviews and other things on the site, then have a look, and we'll be posting that to you as well. So I'm closing this webinar. Thanks everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye.